Hey guys, Grunty here. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how and why Halo 3 looks better than the latest Halo game, Halo 5. I'm going to be going through some textures, explosions, all kinds of that stuff between these two games. I'm going to be showing you guys how Halo 3 is better. And keep in mind, these games have an 8-year difference between the releases. So let's go and examine this. So the first thing we're going to pay attention to here is the gun detail, the weapon textures. If we just zoom into the battle rifle here, you guys are going to see we have a bunch of textures on here. We have a lot of the metal detail. You guys can see here in the bottom right, we have some scuff marks on the back, some scratches on the metal. And you guys can just see all around the gun has metal detail. Like it's not just solid, but there's actual texture for the metal. Obviously you're gonna have to just, you know, ignore the geometry, because back then a lot of the shapes and stuff, they were not all smooth. Back in the day, a lot of objects and everything were very just straight to the point. They were very bendy, look like squares. That's just because this game's old and everything isn't smoothed out like today's games. So now we're going to look at the battle rifle in Halo 5. We're not using the current battle rifle model because they're completely different. We're going to be using the older one. And as you guys can see here, while we're examining it, there is no texture of metal. It is just a solid color. But really, the only thing you're going to see here is the gun is just more HD. Alright, it's more HD than the previous gun. That's just because the textures are newer, but there is literally like no texture here. It's just a solid color. You're only going to see like more lines, a little bit more buttons. That's about it. You're just seeing more like indents into the gun and more fine detailing. That's it. The texture wise, there's literally no texture. It's a solid color. I mean, literally the gun looks brand new. It looks like it hasn't been put into war or been scratched at all. It looks like a toy gun's been sitting in some kid's closet and was just pulled out. There's no texture showing that it's metal or anything. It's just a solid color. I mean, it looks like a forge object. It looks like a forge block was formed into a gun just from the looks of the color and the fact that there's literally like barely a texture there. And obviously these guns aren't the exact same model, so there's going to be a few changes, but honestly, Halo 3, it just looks better. There's more texture, and that's just, it could go personal preference here in this situation a little bit, but honestly, Halo 3 it looks like it's more of an actual gun and not a toy gun. Now let's go back to Halo 3, and this is where you really do see a huge difference. Okay, if we look here at the Halo 3 Warthog, you'll notice there's so much more detail in the Warthog. There's a bunch of dirt, there's a bunch of metal texture on it. It looks like an actual Jeep that has went through war, and you know, it's been driven before. It's worn out. You know, there's true metal texture, so it definitely looks like a real object here. Ignore this bottom, you know, on the screen. There was a little glitchy part there on the video, but you guys can see clearly. Look at this. I mean, there's detail all over this Warthog. There's dirt, metal. I mean, if you even look inside, the interior surprisingly looks really freaking good. I mean, it's textured really well, and you know, the screen over there is good. It's a really good textured Warthog. But coming into Halo 5, you guys can see, obviously it's a completely different design from the last Warthog. But the thing is this literally looks like it has barely ran through any dirt. It's not dirty. This Warthog has less, I mean, you can see here, there's little worn out pieces here and there. But the thing is, it looks like clay, man. It looks like Play-Doh, okay? And what I mean by this is the fact that there's just, oh, like, look at that texture right there, too. Look at that. That looks bad. But, you know, a lot of the textures here on the Warthog, they're very low res. And this is a lot, you're going to see a giant trend in Halo 5 is low resolution textures. When you get pretty close to them, even without scoping in, you'll notice that it's very low resolution. I mean, you can see here, there's a little bit of difference here in the interior, but look at the wheel. Look at the wheel. Why is it so bad in the texture? Why does it look so ugly? It looks very weird. And that's kind of a texture you see in like GTA 5 on the PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360. Those are the kind of the same textures you'd see inside of a car interior in the game. And I mean, like the Warthog itself, man, there's a lot of like screws in the Warthog, so you could say yes, there's a good amount of detail on this Warthog, but the thing is that there's like not as much detail going on as Halo 3's Warthog. You can see here there's just these giant gaps of just solid colored space. That's exactly what we see in the battle rifle. There's no texture, it's just a solid color, and that is what you are seeing on this Warthog, is just a bunch of areas of just solid color. You're not, I mean, look at that right there. Look at, it's just a solid color, and yeah, you'll see some scuff marks added on top of it, but it's a solid color with lines across it. If we go back to Halo 3 real quick, you don't see a solid color. You see several different colors on this Warthog. You see black, you see brown, you see green, you see different kinds of those colors of brown and green, and that's because it's dirt, and there's a legitimate metal texture here with a bunch of scratches on it. And so you can see there's a difference. There is a difference between these two Warthogs. There's not a just solid color with some scuff marks on it. This is a full-on textured Warthog, and the textures might be a little bit low resolution on Halo 3. I mean, come on, that's expected. It's an 8-year difference, but the Warthog itself is more texturized and more detailed if you look at it from this realistic standpoint here and looking at the metal that's on it and the dirt. Now we're going to be taking a look at the Halo explosions between the Warthogs, and as you guys can see here, there was 2 explosions. If we go here to Halo 5, there's just 1, right? So you can see we're going to examine the differences now. You've seen them. First one is it blows up, right? Boom, huge cool explosion, and then there's a second explosion for the turret. We go here. There's not much of an explosion there from the looks of it. There's not a really big effect. Let's go back to Halo 3. Fire everywhere. You see sparks flying, all that stuff. Let's go back here. There's not much of an explosion. You just see a bunch of sparks, and you hear a loud sound, and then some fire. Because, I mean, there is an explosion, but not a big of an effect. Let's hear at Halo 3 in slow-mo. Look at the flames, the smoke, the sparks are flying out. You have a second explosion. It's a true explosion right there. Let's go back over here to Halo 5. Look at, are you seeing that? There is no huge smoke explosion. The car just flies up, a bunch of sparks come out, and you just hear a loud boom. One more time for Halo 5. Because, I mean, if it's this difficult to see an explosion, then there really is no true explosion. Look at that. Just sparks. Just sparks. A little bit of fire, just sparks. Little electricity there that was on the sand, and a boom. And then they had an effect on your screen that made it all white to look like there was a huge explosion, but there really wasn't. It was just sparks and a loud boom with the car going up. So clearly, there is no explosion here. We've examined it. Barely a good explosion. Halo 3 has way better effects when it comes to a Warthog explosion there, so clearly Halo 3 has better effects when it comes to explosions, and I mean, like, just that looks really good. It looks like a true explosion, and you know, just Halo 5 really failed on that. Now, as much as you guys thought this whole video we'd be just talking about how Halo 3 looks completely better about Halo 5, and that is the point, there is one thing that Halo 5 does take the lead in, and that should be pretty obvious here, is the explosions for the grenades are actually better in Halo 5 than Halo 3. And, I mean, that is alright. Clearly, the vehicle explosions, though, in Halo 3 are better, but for the explosions with the grenades, Halo 5 is better with that, and, you know, so that's just something to point out, just in case somebody commented it like that. Hey, the grenades look better, though, so yeah, the grenade explosions in this game in Halo 5 are a little bit better. So moving away from explosions and going more to a calm scenery here, you guys begin looking at the water, and the water actually looks really good in Halo 3, and it's really a lot better than Halo 5's. Here's Halo 5's right now. Looking at it, not looking and paying attention to the forge objects in the background, but just looking at the water only. The water in Halo 5 is so untextured, so much less detailed. I mean, obviously, we didn't do gunshots in Halo 3, so you don't necessarily want to pay attention to that, but just the texture of the water here is different. And obviously, people are going to be like, well, that's unfair because you're using Forge to look at water. Well, you know what, buddy? There's really no beach in Halo 5 because of the game's focus in arena, and the campaign isn't taking place on a beach, now is it? So just looking at the water itself, and not necessarily the shore textures, yes, Halo 3 has way better water than Halo 5's. It's still water, okay? They didn't downgrade the water in this Forge map on title just so that way, you know, you could forge on it. They didn't just make the map look terrible while you're forging on it. They obviously put work into making this map at least look good for you to forge on, and so they did put effort into the water too, and the water just still does not look good as Halo 3. Now, as we look at Halo 3's ground textures, we're not necessarily looking at like sand comparisons. We're more just looking at the texture quality on the ground. And you guys can see here, for a game that came out in 2007, and even just wall textures overall, they look really good. They're not low resolution when you get up close to them. They still look relatively super detailed even when you get up close to them. And that is a good thing. You know, the sand definitely looked textured, didn't look bad, it didn't look like Play-Doh, it looked like real sand. So does the rock. You know, you can see cracks and a lot of details here. And if we go over here to the grass, you guys will notice the grass looks relatively good. It's a little bit old grass for an older game, so it doesn't look really good, but it's really good in terms of grass. And if you just look at the metal, look at the detail. You can see a bunch of scratches, and it really looks like true metal. It doesn't look like a Play-Doh or a solid color you would see in Halo 5. You know, and just if we look around here more on the map, you will just see that the textures on the walls are detailed. There's a bunch of cracks. The metal looks like real metal, a lot of scratches and marks on it. You know, it has that material look, you know, and just so really there's just a lot of detail going on here in the maps. You know, there's no extreme low resolution textures here. I mean, you might see some in some areas, a little bit of low resolution, like those crates, but like here, this is detailed, you know. There's a lot of, like, you don't see the repeated textures happening over and over again. Let's look at this, you know, that isn't too bad. That looks relatively textured and well. So, you know, nothing's low resolution here. Another explosion for you guys, why not? Nothing's really extremely bad in this case, you know. Everything looks good. If we just walk around the map, nothing looks extremely low resolution. Everything's good. You know, we got lights here. There's even a texture on the ground of the light. I wish it was real, but, you know, older game, that's going to be expected. Either way, as you guys can see here, the game appears to have really good textures. I mean, they're low resolution, but that's just kind of out of the map. And even then, it still looked pretty detailed. But going to Halo 5, you guys will see... Look at this! What the fuck is this? Like, this is... What is that? It looks like beans on the ground. That's super pixelated. Okay, the rocks, they're super low resolution. Alright, this isn't Forge, this is a Warzone map, so 343 created it. The textures are completely flat, they don't even look good. The rocks are completely flat there, as you guys can see too. But even when they're three-dimensional, they're so low resolution. I mean, look at these tracks. This is terrible. The Halo 3 rock wall looked better than this dirt texture on the ground. You can even see a line with the textures, which is actually really frequent in this game. You will see a lot of separations and textures in Halo 5. But just look at all the texture, man. And while I'm killing this bastard Promethean here, if you guys didn't notice, just look at the walls for a second. No texture at all. Just solid colors. No wall textures, just solid colors. Let's go look at some rocks real quick. Okay, look at these. Let's look at this rock real quick, okay? Look at how low resolution and fake this rock looks, okay? Even when I went up this close in Halo 3, it still looked good. Okay, look at this. This is horrendous. This is absolutely disgusting. This isn't even a rock. And I mean, you're gonna see mostly all these rocks are like this. I mean, some rocks, they look decent, but like, look at this. Look at this is a ground rock right here. Literally pixelated. Looks like Minecraft textures. Not even joking. It's that bad. I mean, look at the ground here, guys. Just look at this little tiny cliff texture right here. It looks like it got smudged together and it's super low resolution. It looks terrible. Now looking into the final comparison here for this video, because we can be rambling about a whole bunch more textures in this game, but we'll take way too long. Looking at the armor, okay, this is a very important part of the game, is the armor. The armor has detail. If you guys see, I'm zooming in, can you see those scratch marks on the armor itself? You can see a bunch of scratch mark textures on the arm, which aren't even really that blurry, if anything. But you guys can see a bunch of scratch marks on the helmet, so there's detail there. There is detail. I mean, if we just keep looking around, I mean, look at the gun real quick. That looks pretty nice. We got glove detail. Obviously, the gloves, you know, they're low poly. They're not as sharp and realistic looking. That's just because this came out 10 years ago. Okay, so all the textures, they weren't really smoothed out much in these games. But you know, just looking around, you'll see that it's very simplistic. I will admit, it's very simplistic. It's a little bit. It looks a little aged, but there's detail there. Okay. And it looks good. Lots going on here in this armor, okay? Yeah, so you will notice some cutoffs in the textures or whatever, but that's just because this game is old. I mean, even looking at that, though, that's pretty nice. It's really low textured there, but you guys can see there's actually effects coming off of when you walk on things, so that's cool. But like I said, guys, this is armor that's years old, okay? But you guys can see there is still textured detail going on within the armor. Let's look at Halo 5. Now, going into Halo 5, you're obviously going to see an art style change, but you're also going to see that, you know, the edges and all that, they're a lot smoother. It's not low polygon like Halo 3, but the thing is there's actual texture here. There's, like, Halo 3 had texture, right? But there's a lot more worn out textures, a lot more scratches that are really noticeable and dark on this armor, okay? So that is noticeable. The thing is it's not that Halo 3, it's not that Bungie couldn't add worn out textures to the armor in Halo 3. It's not that they couldn't do that, okay? They could have easily, and they already had worn out textures, you know, on the armor before in Halo 3, but their intentions changed. For whatever reason, they decided to make Halo 3 look all nice and clean on the armor, and they got rid of all the worn out textures off the armor. As you guys can see here, look at the Halo 3 beta. This is before they made the change. Look at all the worn out textures on this armor. You can see there's a bunch of scratches, a bunch of different colors. It looks like all these armors right here went through war. But in Halo 3, for whatever reason, as you guys can see now, look at, they cleaned it up. They made everything look very clean. It looks like this armor has not even been in a war yet. It looks brand new, okay? But in the Halo 3 beta, it looked like Halo 2 and it looked worn out. It looked like it had gone through a lot of war. So it's not necessarily that Bungie couldn't make the armor look extremely detailed and worn out, you know, back in 2007. It's not that they couldn't do that. It's that they decided not to. Okay, because as you guys can see here, from the beta, which had a bunch of worn out details on the armor and stuff, to the final game, as you guys can see here right now, which is nice, slick, and clean. There's still scratches and details with the armor on it, but it's not all extremely worn out. It's a lot more cleaned up, and it looks like it hasn't even been in a war yet. So yeah, it's the intentions, not the ability to texture. So does Halo 3 win this? Because, you know, obviously Halo 5 has a lot of detailed marks and all that. I think definitely Halo 3 still wins if we had to put beta in it, you know. But for detail wise in Halo 3, yes, there's a lot less detail, admittedly. But for the beta, there was way more detail and way more worn out textures on the armor. So this is kind of a half and half. Halo 5 wins because it has a lot of detail. But you know, Halo 3 also wins for its beta, not necessarily the final game, but its beta wins because the textures were way better in that game for the armor. So, you know, obviously I do like the look of Halo 3's armor. It looks really nice and clean, and I do approve of that. It looks good. And so obviously it's more of a personal opinion for you guys. This is up to you on this one, so it's kind of a half and half. It kind of ties up here. So what it all comes down to in this video, after examining a bunch of textures, explosions, and all that between the two games, yes, Halo 3 does look better. I just showed you how and why. So yeah, Halo 3 has better textures and it looks a lot better to the eye. A lot more appealing. So, you know, Halo 5, you know, it has suffered a lot of low-res textures, maybe not some good explosions when it came to like the Warthog, and the details, the textures, they were missing. It seemed like Halo 5 was following more of a Play-Doh texture theme, you know? A lot of the game looked like Play-Doh. There was less textures compared to Halo 3. Halo 3 was just covered in textures, while Halo 5 just had a lot more solid colors and almost was just going for more of that clean approach where there wasn't anything dirty. Just kind of looked like Play-Doh, less detailed. Kind of looked like half the game was just made out of forge blocks. So, you know, Halo 3 looks a lot better in terms of textures. And for a game that's 8 years apart, Halo 3 being 8 years older than Halo 5, it's actually kind of sad to see that this game looks a lot better than Halo 5. Like, that just shows 343 step up your game. And I mean, I know they can make a good game. I know they can make a game that has good graphics. Look at Halo 4. You know, we'll be comparing Halo 4 and Halo 5 very soon. If you guys really want to see that, let me know down in the comments. We'll be comparing those two games. But that's about it. I know I'm about to get a lot of hate in the comment section below of people disagreeing and saying Halo 5 clearly looks better. But, you know, if you just look at it from a texture standpoint and not necessarily the whole polygon issue for Halo 3 because of how old it is and a lot of other things, Halo 3 does look better. It does look better than Halo 5. Halo 5 just looks way much more fake. It might be a lot more cleaner, okay, because it's a newer game, but on a texture standpoint, it does not look as good as Halo 3. So I'm obviously going to get a lot of hate comments and disagreements in that, but I still want to hear them. I still want to see them. So if you have something to say it in the comment section. But anyway, yeah, Halo 3 is better, and that is it for this video. If you guys would like to see more of these type of videos, let me know down in the comment section below, and hopefully I can even shrink the size of them, because, you know, a 20-minute video, that's long. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.